man, I want to know who I am. When I first landed in Kazakhstan in 2023, I remember just like looking around and like, wow, like so many Kazakhs, this is crazy. And then I was able to hold like the little babies and like I was like looking into their eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh, this was me, you know, like I wanted to be like a US diplomat to Kazakhstan. I wanted to do it so bad. Even though like I grew up here, I still, every time I see a Kazakh in the Olympics, I would watch the Olympics every time. I'd always cheer for obviously Team USA, but I also cheer for Team Kazakhstan. You know, my kids are still going to be 50%, you know, Kazakh, right? So like I would love them so much to get the language down.
Саламатсыздар ма, қымбатты достар. Цукербергтің көршілері подкастына қош келдіңіздер. Естеріңізге сала кетейік, біз Кремний алқабында отырмыз. Бұл солтүстік Калифорния, АқШ, Стэнфорд университетінің дәл қасындамыз. Және біздің ұранымыз Кремний алқабы қазақша сөйлейді. Кейбірде қазақша сөйлей алмай қалған кезде ағылшынша сөйлейміз. Сондықтан қош келдіңіздер.
Ja, Ақселеу өзің айтқандай, кейбір кезде ағылшынша сөйлейміз, және бүгінгі қонағымыз біздің Пол Сардар Бабкок. Және аты айтып отырғандай, бұл жігіт Таразда кейін өзі туылған, бірақ бір жасында осы жердегі отбасы асырап алып, содан бері Америкада өскен бала. Және Америкада өскендіктен біз бүгін ағылшынша сөйлейміз, бірақ әрине субтитрлармен қазақша бәрін аударып отырамыз. Сондықтан, Сардар, welcome.
Hello, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining. So, yeah, recently you posted on Facebook that you got married. Congratulations. It's such a big news and such a big step in your life. So, could you like share a little information about that? How did you meet your beautiful bride? And like how soon it happened?
Yeah. So actually recently I moved to New York in June, and I was first actually looking for a job and I couldn't find one at first, but then I applied and got into NYU for my master's. But during this time, I happened to be actually LDS Christian, and I was going to church on Sundays, and I saw this one girl. She was so beautiful, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to ask her out, but I'm so shy at first, you know. You know how at first you get a little shy, and then you get courage to finally go and do it. So I went and asked her out, and yeah, we started dating in the whole summer, and then I was like, oh my gosh, like she's perfect, like everything I want, like she just, you know, so amazing, all the good qualities, and it was just felt like the right decision. We started dating, and then actually I happened to be on my birthday on the 16th of September. I decided to ask her to marry me because I knew me and my fiance at the time, now my wife, I knew that we had gone ring shopping together because I didn't know what kind of ring she wanted, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't like just do it randomly because she'll know when I'm going to ask her to marry me. So I decided to do it on my birthday. So she thought that we were just going to dinner for my birthday. And then my friend, he actually helped me set up this arrangement in Brooklyn Bridge. And that ended up not working because it was really windy. So he somehow got a reservation at this restaurant, and so I took my fiance to here, and yeah, right there I asked her to marry me, and we're planning the wedding day in December.
Oh my God, we're so happy for you. It's truly great, good, big news and a big step.
And she looks like a Hollywood superstar for me, right?
Oh my
She's
God.
so beautiful.
Yeah, that's true.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So, Sardar, are you okay if we call you Sardar, not Paul? Because it seems natural to us. I mean,
I agree. Recently, I've started to meet a lot of Kazakh people, and every time they call me Paul, it's kind of weird now. So like I like when they call me Sardar, you know, my Kazakh name.
Yeah. So I think people first learned about you when you participated in a documentary film, please correct me if I'm wrong, of Жанар Байсеміз, шетелдегі қазақ балалары. She featured you and your adopted sister, she's also from Kazakhstan, in one of the series, right? And after that, you appeared on multiple media in Kazakhstan. People follow you on social media, but still, maybe some people still don't know you. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Okay, yeah. So I was born in 1999 in September, Taraz, Kazakhstan. I was then later, according to my documents that I have, my birth mother, she gave birth to me in Kamshaga, this town outside of Taraz, and then I think a police officer or something, she left the hospital and then brought me to the orphanage in Taraz. A year later, in 2000, I was, I think, 11 months old. My American family came they wanted to adopt two children. They're from Salt Lake City, Utah, and they already had a big family. They had 5 kids, but my parents said that they felt like they should adopt some kids. They were a little bit older, so they couldn't have kids anymore, so they wanted to adopt some. They had this feeling, my mom said that she had a feeling from like God that she will be able to have more children through adoption. And so she found there was this company, some adoption organization that would send American families over to post-Soviet countries, one of them being Kazakhstan. And they had found me and then my younger sister too. We're not blood related, but we both got adopted from the same orphanage in Taraz called Ümit. And then a year later, and then while they were adopting me in 2000, they adopted 2, me and my sister. Her name is Zarina, her Kazakh name. And then there's another little girl who came up to my parents while she was in the orphanage and like, Mama, Mama. And it was my older sister. My future older sister, she wanted to be adopted too, of course. So she came to my parents and my mom and dad were like, oh my gosh, we gotta adopt her too. So they came back a year later in 2001 and adopted her. So then there's 3 of us Kazakh adoptees in my family. Then later, my parents adopted 2 more brothers from Taiwan. And so they have 10 kids.
Yeah, that's a big family.
It's huge. It's a huge family. So it was crazy growing up. My father, he was a lawyer. We grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's kind of in the west side of the United States, not as well known. Mountains everywhere, amazing childhood growing up. Big family. It was amazing.
If you can share about you already told a little bit about your parents and how they came up with the idea of adoption, and just by taking a visit to post-Soviet countries that they had some feelings. But could you share a little bit about your parents?
Yeah. Like I said, my dad was a lawyer, tax lawyer in Utah. And my mom, she stayed, stay-at-home mom and took care of all the kids, and so my dad would, work very hard and provide, and then my mom would take care of all of his kids, cook, clean, all this stuff, and raise us kids and go to our school, like music. She had us do music or sports, as a mom does, and took us to all these events and all these different things.
So what do you remember from your earliest childhood times?
I remember, so our house in Salt Lake City was not like huge, but it was a good size. I remember we had a big backyard, like a big garden and, grass. And I remember like playing outside a lot. We had this little, I don't know how you would say, like, playground in the in the backyard and, going down the slide and having a little swing. I remember that as a little baby, like a little child, with all my siblings playing outside and, doing things as a kid does, playing with my toys and all these things. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I cannot even imagine how is the life in living such a huge family. It's look like I can imagine the big daycare.
What was the first time you learned that you're adopted? Do you remember that day or?
I must have been super young. I think probably like super young. I mean, it was very obvious to tell. I look not like my parents. They are white Americans. I am Kazakh, Asian looking a little bit. So I think I learned early on, and my parents told us very young, like, hey, you guys are adopted from this country across the sea, and like showed us on the map, like, this is where we went and got you. They showed us like pictures of the orphanage that they had in Kazakhstan, in Taraz, and in 2000, like all the pictures they had took of us and like of the country a little bit. So we knew like a little bit about Kazakhstan, and same with my brothers who were Taiwan. Like they knew like a little bit, like they were from Taiwan. So like we knew like a little bit about like us being adopted. It was very easy to tell.
But I think without internet, there is no other way to get any information about your home country, right? Because it's such an isolation. Kazakhstan is not the closest destination to get to easily visit and get some information. But do you remember like your first thoughts or feelings when you wanted to maybe find or just wonder about your birth parents, like whose they are, like where are they now, or do you remember that feelings?
Yeah, I mean, I knew growing up, like I said, I knew I was adopted. I think I wasn't necessarily curious when I was younger. I think, maybe when I started, obviously sometimes I always wondered in the back of my head, but like I didn't really like, oh, I wonder where, it wasn't until later on, actually, when I was about like a teenager, I think 17 or 18, I was actually, I was in Korea for 2 years. I'm like an LDS Christian, so we do 2-year missions, for our church. And then I was in Korea, and I met this student who was going to university in Korea, and he was a Kazakh, and he was like, oh, we were talking to him, and he's like, oh, I'm from Kazakhstan. I'm like, oh, I'm from Kazakhstan too. I'm adopted though. And he was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And he was the first guy. I remember his name was Marat, and he was the first person, because before then I never really met another Kazakh person. I had only met Kazakhs who were adopted. I met some who were adopted, but I never met like someone who wasn't. So he was the first one, and I was like, I think that's what really sparked my interest, because like I said before, I wasn't necessarily interested in like looking for my parents. And to be honest, I didn't know as much as I should have known about Kazakhstan and like the culture and language. I only knew bits and pieces of what I could read in books and like, in the internet and stuff. But I think meeting him, and then I was like, oh my gosh, now I just have this feeling like, man, I want to know who I am. Like, so I would say like 2018 or 19 was when I started.
Okay. Wanted to ask about this moment. You can skip this answer if it feels personal, but did you ever experience moments of uncertainty or questions about your identity while you're growing up? So, because you look like Asian, right? And I imagine Utah, Salt Lake City is a very white place. Like when you're growing up, not related to your birth parents or Kazakhstan, just did you have this identity? It's not crisis, but I mean uncertainty.
I mean, yeah, I would say for sure. I think every adopted child has this, feeling like you well, especially with me being from Kazakhstan, like I think I just didn't know exactly. You always have in the back of your head, like, I wonder why I was adopted. Like, I didn't know the reason, right? Like, I have no idea, you know, that. So like the uncertainty of, you know, being a Kazakh, I didn't really even know what that meant, you know, like growing up, like, that cultural identity of being a Kazakh, like never really growing up was in my heart. Like, I just didn't know what that meant. So I would say I had like that kind of crisis until, you know, like I said, later on where I finally started getting more interest, I guess you would say.
Yeah, and actually share some your posts and stories about your visit to Kazakhstan when you shared your thoughts and feelings, and just meeting the people who are look-alike like you, and maybe some of them might be your relatives, you don't know. And that was so interesting to read, and just to observe your flow of your thoughts over there. And how was it? How's your trip to Kazakhstan over there? And do you want to like visit it again sometime soon?
I think Sardar was multiple times in Kazakhstan.
Oh, you've been already multiple times in Kazakhstan. I see.
So the first time was actually in 2023 was the first time. I went with two other guys who were also adopted from Kazakhstan. They both, one happened to also live in Utah, and the other, he was from Michigan, but he was in school with me. So he was also adopted from Kazakhstan, all three of us. And so we decided to go on like a trip together to our hometown, our home country. One of them, actually, he had found his birth parents, so we spent time with his family, which was crazy. So he, the whole time we were like with his family and his siblings, and it was super cool to see that experience through his eyes. And when I first landed in Kazakhstan in 2023, we first landed in Astana, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I remember just like looking around and like, even just on the airplane, you know, I was like, wow, like so many Kazakhs, this is crazy, you know. I hadn't even like registered in my mind, and I land in the airport and I'm just like surrounded by all Kazakhs. I'm just like, it feels so like surreal, I guess you would say, like, oh my gosh, like I'm home. I'm home, but like at home I don't know, but it still feels like home.
Really? It did feel like a home, even though you've never been there? Like, I mean, in when you're new, like yourself.
Yeah, it felt like, it's like, I don't know how to explain, like just being surrounded by like the culture that you were, you know, born into but didn't like grow into. And like me, for the first time experiencing that, like it's just like so shocking. I just like loved walking on the street and I just looked like everybody. It's just, that doesn't happen, you know, that didn't happen to me. And you know, growing up in Utah, in the United States in general, there's not many Kazakhs in general. So like, you don't really see that, get that experience. But then like for me going to Kazakhstan and being surrounded by them, by all Kazakhs, you know, eating the food, hearing the language, like just being surrounded and seeing everything with my own eyes, like, oh, it was like so amazing.
So interesting to hear that you had such feelings. And do you remember that you had some expectations or imaginations about the Kazakhstan, and it was different or the same? What was your first expression overall from Kazakhstan, and like Kazakh people or culture, music-wise, as you said, the food-wise? Do you think that you like it? For example, besh parmak or not?
Yeah. Well, I think my impression of Kazakhstan before I got to Kazakhstan was maybe the Kazakhstan my parents had shown me. You know, the photos that they had, but that was like 20 years ago, Kazakhstan. Whereas, you know, when I went in 2023, that was 20 years since like they had gone. So one thing they were like, my parents were talking to me like, you know, maybe it has like this and this. But when I went to, especially the two cities of Astana and Almaty, it felt very much like a, you know, like a city. It's like not very much like not very different than like cities you see in America, you know, like just big, you know, big buildings, you know, lots of people everywhere. And then the first time I tried actually like Kazakh food was actually in New York City. Before I went to Kazakhstan in 2021, I had gone to a Nowruz party. Some Kazakh people actually invited me for the first time, and they flew me to New York. They're like, "We're having this Nowruz party. You need to come. You need to like be at our traditional like New Year's party, and you got to eat the food." And I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna pay for your flight. You're gonna stay at my house. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy!" And my family was also like, "This is crazy. You're just gonna do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna try and, you know, fly out there by myself and try it." And so that's the first time I actually had it. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this food is just delicious." Like I loved bishvamrak, and like horse meat in general is just, oh my, it's like, you know what's interesting? A lot of the foods, like, I don't know how to describe also, it's like I had eaten this already somehow, but I haven't eaten it. So they just felt like very, very homey. Like it's like I've had this food before, but I hadn't, you know?
Oh my God. So it means that your body is familiar somehow with such a taste of the food?
Because Sardar's ancestors were eating this food all the time, right? I mean.
That's so interesting. Could you say that your two other sisters are also like interested in Kazakh culture, or just did they visit the Kazakhstan too, or do they have some like connections?
Yeah, actually, my younger sister last year, she found her biological mom, and she came to Kazakhstan, and so she met her mom, and apparently she has two sisters, you know, also older sisters. And so she's been back twice and like has a good relationship with her biological mom, and she loves it, you know, loves being Kazakh also. My older sister, not so much. I don't know if she's interested. Maybe later, hopefully. I'm trying to help her, be like, "Hey, you should come one time with me," like, because I want to go again, maybe this year or next year, and like it'd be cool to take my older sister to Kazakhstan, you know, so she can see herself also.
When you just flew there like in 2023 and came back, so your sisters were curious about Kazakhstan or not?
Yeah. They were very curious. Like I remember I came back and I had a bunch of photos and stuff I could like share to like the family, and like I remember like sitting down with, well, especially my two sisters, I'm like, "This is Kazakhstan. This is where we're from." Like I was like showing them and explaining the food, the buildings that I'm showing them. I showed them the orphanage, that because I was able to go to the orphanage in 2020, in Taraz, and I was like, this is where we were adopted from. And it was interesting actually. In 2023, when I went to that orphanage, sadly it was being remodeled at that time, so there was no like children inside. But in 2025, I actually was in Almaty from January until March this year. I was doing an internship, and I was able to go to Taraz that time, and it was so cool because the remodel had been done, and there was like children in there, you know, the orphans, and it was just like, it was so crazy. I found a picture of me when I was a baby with one orphanage worker, and she was holding me, and I found her. She's still working there, and I was like, this was me like 20 years ago, you know. And it was so cool, and she was like hugging me and crying, and then I was able to hold like the little babies, and like I was like looking into their eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh, this was me, you know, like it was crazy.
So I mean, they have such a noble profession, those caregivers in orphanages, right? And I believe that they fell in love with babies and they are adopted, and after that they probably miss them, right? I mean, it's such a miracle story that you met her. Sardar, can I go back a little bit? So you mentioned that your younger sister found her birth mom. Is she Zarina who found? Are you comfortable sharing with their story a little? So if her birth mom is alive, do you know why she gave up on her when she was little? Is there any? Because I've been hearing lots of stories about this adoption process in Kazakhstan, and something feels shady. It means like some people, they didn't know that their children were alive. They were told that they're like they passed away when they were little or something. Like, I mean, how Zarina's mom lost her. Are you comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I think I can share it. If I'm correct, so her mom apparently had married this one guy, and that's where her two older siblings are from this one first husband. And then her husband left her with these two daughters, and so she moved back. I think they were in Almaty, but they moved back to Taraz, and she met her second, remarried, who is my sister's biological father, the second one. And if I'm correct, I think her grandparents didn't accept her having a child with another man, and I think they told her to give her up to the orphanage. And I think this is correct. I can't remember. I'll have to ask my sister again, but I think that's correct. So the grandparents said, no, we don't want, this other child from this other man. And so I think they had to put her in the orphanage. And then but then she was trying to go find her afterwards, because she's like, I made a mistake, I should just be able to keep them. Like, I don't care what my, the grandparents said. But by that time, my sister had been adopted.
That's a story. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I hope now she had some closure with finding her mom and her sisters. And I hope everything will be fine in your life. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and as you said, you are already keeping in touch with other adoptees from Kazakhstan, and you already took a visit with some of them by just having a common trip. Can you, as I think based on our observation, you are maybe even sometimes leading this community of the adoptees from the Kazakhstan? Can you share more? Like, are there a lot of the
how do you find each other, right?
Yeah.
How do you find each other?
And
you play such an active role, because I remember watching Жанар Байсем's movie, and she said everyone was talking about some Pol Sardar, like every other adoptee in Utah. And Жанар was thinking, who is this Pol Sardar? And turned out you are also an adoptee from Kazakhstan. She mentioned that in that documentary. So where did this start? Like, how do you find each other, and how do you keep in touch?
So actually how it started was me and one of my friends. His name is Nate Ruslan Asper. Shout out to him. He is also from Salt Lake City, also adopted from Kazakhstan. And we both were, became friends, and because our parents knew each other from being adopted. Like, there was, I think, a lot of children adopted into families from Utah at a specific time. So we would have Kazakh adoption reunions every summer. And so I remember going to these as a child, and seeing, other adopted kids, at these reunions, And I remembered Nate, his name is Nate, growing up, and at these reunions. And then I finally I met him in person, and we're like, oh, we're both adopted from Kazakhstan. And he's like, yeah. I was like, what if, and we were both thinking, like, what if there's a way we could help Kazakh adoptees, start to make a little community for ourselves? Because there's probably not one. It's kind of very niche, first of all, there's not many adoptees in general, in the United States. But second of all, especially from Kazakhstan, there's not that many. So I talked to my sisters, and he also has a sister also adopted from Kazakhstan, and we're like, let's start here, small, let's add these, our siblings together in this group, and then, maybe other people know other people. I asked my parents, because actually in my neighborhood there was 2 houses away, there was this other family. They had adopted 2 kids from Kazakhstan also, and so. Because they had talked to my parents because they wanted to adopt, and when us 3 kids were adopted, they went adopted from Kazakhstan also. So we added those two people, and then my friend Nate knew a couple of people, and it started to grow and grow. And like it happened to be there was a solid amount from Utah. I guess just LDS Christians adopt a lot. I guess it's common. So there was about like 15 to 20 kids from Kazakhstan adopted in this group. And then we started to look for, especially me and Nate, but especially me, I was like looking in like Facebook pages, groups, and every time, once in a while, I would see people's posts, and they would say, "Hey, I'm a Kazakh adoptee. I'm looking for my biological parents." And so I would message them, and I would say, "Hey, I'm also adopted from Kazakhstan. I would love to try to help, but I also we're trying to make a little community of Kazakh adoptees." And so it started to go that way too, where I would see, and then if they would know somebody, because a lot of times they would be adopted from some sort of organization also that would adopt out of Kazakhstan all around the United States. And so it started to grow and grow, and like now it's around like 50 people or something. And every time we see someone or in posts or anything else, I ask all the other people, I'm like, "Hey, if you see any other adoptees, like add them to our group." And we try to like talk about, our same struggles growing up, try to help each other look for our biological parents or where to start, or ideas on how to, different things like this. And so this community's grown, and it's been awesome so far. Like we've even started, meetups. Like a lot of them have started to meet each other and like became friends and stuff. So it's been really cool.
That's so great. Yeah, I'm seeing on your LinkedIn pages that you are co-founder of Kazakh Adoption Associations for about above the 50 people adoptees from Kazakhstan, and you were like, that's so great that you're keeping in touch with Kazakhstan too, and providing all the information with the Kazakhstani TV shows and with us, like by sharing a lot of information. We just wonder like how it's happening, why it's happening, what is happening. And as you said, you already found easily like several families in Utah, which is close to you, who were adopting the kids from Kazakhstan. Could you say why such families were interested in adoptees from Kazakhstan, in the kids from Kazakhstan? Like, was it there some like movement that time that they tried to help to save some kids, or was there some news about that the time of their post-Soviet Union country crisis?
So why Utah families are interested in adoption? So
Yeah.
Because I want to mention our story, how I met Sardar first time, right? Mm-hmm. So we had this episode with Sage Gulmira, with our great friend, and Sardar left a comment that he knows Gulmira, she's a great person, and I found Sardar's email and messaged that, "Sardar, if you are even here in California, feel free to ping me and we will have this podcast with you." So Gulmira's story is also similar. She's also from Utah, right, or not? She's also were adopted into Mormon. No, not Utah. I'm sorry, but into like religious Mormon family. So does this have thing to do with the religion? Can you please explain why so many Mormon families are interested in adoption?
Yeah, I think in general, I know a lot of them. In general, when it comes to adoption, I know, first of all, like in general, Americans out of all the countries adopt the most. So I think firstly, it's an American thing. Second of all, I think it also is a religious thing a little bit too. I think Christians in general are, told to go out into the world, and, a lot of them, if you can't have a kid, adopt a kid. I think raising a good family and like having kids is a blessing, right? Is like it's promised. So I think specifically in Utah, like why, LDS Christians adopted from Kazakhstan. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly why Kazakhstan at the start. My parents had seen, like I said, some sort of organization that specifically adopted kids from post-Soviet countries. And I think it just maybe like, I don't know how they like chose, like I said, like my parents felt like it was like felt like God was leading them to like come adopt us from this specific country. I don't know why, but it's, their belief. And so I think, and then a lot of adoption, like when families do want to adopt, I think because the community is so strong within LDS Christians, is that, they tell one family, like, hey, I want to adopt, like maybe, an organization that adopts children. And like, oh yeah, I know this one. I adopted my kids from here. And like, oh, okay. And then it starts to go like this. That's my guess. I don't know exactly the reason why, but, God's will, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, we are very grateful for these families because you found like true parents. You grew up in such a happy childhood, and it's really great that you guys find each other. Can you please tell us about Latter-day Saints Church, right? LDS, you said. Is it Latter-day Saints Church?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you please tell about this direction? Is this part of the Christianity? Because in Kazakhstan, we are not very familiar with it, but it feels like religion takes huge part of your life too, because you spent 2 years in Korea in a mission.
Yeah, I can tell you. So, the Church of, the full name's like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Some people call us Mormons. It can be called us that, but usually I like to use the term Christian because if you use the term Mormon, then you don't think it's a Christian church. But it's a branch of Christianity. In mainstream Christianity, there's like Protestants, Orthodox, and Catholics. And then there's like the fourth one, which is, I would just say others, So I would say like LDS Christians fall within the others. So I would say very similar to other Christian beliefs, read the Bible, believe in like Jesus and God, and that similarities. It has a couple other like different beliefs also. They believe, we also have like another book called the Book of Mormon, which is the name Mormon comes from. It's another book. It's kind of similar to the Bible, but we believe that this book was from ancient prophets of America and who had believed in Jesus before the Europeans even got to America, and that this record was translated later by a prophet. Kind of similar how in Islam there is a Prophet Muhammad. There's in LDS Christianity there was a prophet, we call it Joseph Smith, and he's the one who found this record buried, and God told him to translate this book. It's never been changed, just like the Quran is claimed to be. So it just came from these ancient prophets. He translated it, and then he's been teaching this from this book and the Bible, together, and that's how like the LDS Christian religion grew. So like I would say, it's like part of Christianity, but it's kind of like also like a little extra, I would say, as well. But when it comes to actually the growth of the LDS Church, it's very interesting. When I was in Kazakhstan, I went to church every single week. They have a chapel in Almaty and one in Astana, and so like I went to church there, and a lot of Kazakhs were like, oh my gosh, it's I think a lot of Kazakhs have a very interesting thinking about Christianity. Like most Kazakhs are Muslim, and when they think of Christianity, maybe they think of Russian Orthodox, because in Kazakhstan most Christians happen to be Russian, so that maybe that's the first thing that comes to their head. But I would say it's very different than that style of Christianity. But it was cool, going to a chapel, an LDS chapel, like in Kazakhstan. Like, it's crazy. You would see native Kazakhs, in here. Like, you'd see Russians also, a bunch of different peoples, but like in the same church is like the same everywhere you go in the world. You just go visit it, and I don't know. It was kind of cool, like sense of familiarity for me. Just every Sunday going to church in Kazakhstan.
Which I love about our country most, that we are open to all religions, and we treat each other with respect, like whatever your religion is. And I am very happy that you have two chapels of your church in Kazakhstan. Such a cool thing. So you spent 2 years in Korea too, right? Can you please tell about the Korea period of your time too? Because You speak Korean, or how many languages you speak?
Yeah. So with an extent of, our past conversation about the LDS Church, one of the things that it's not required, but it's kind of encouraged is for young men and women to go serve a mission, like a proselyting mission, teaching people about Jesus and about the Book of Mormon and the Bible, So usually for young men, usually it's like, it's not always the same, but usually it's like from 18 to 20. After they finish high school, you'll go on a mission, young men for 2 years. And for young women, it's 18 months. Women are not actually required to go on missions, but like men, it's kind of like you need to go, kind of thing. So in 2017, I got my mission call. And so, I got sent to Korea. And it's interesting, these missions, we are not paid. So you have to pay to actually go. And you work 2 years, proselyting in the streets. And in Korea, it's interesting too. To learn the language, they'll send you to a kind of a crash course language. So called an MTC, or Missionary Training Center. They have like 10 around the world. I can't remember, but the biggest one is in Utah, in Provo. Because I was learning Korean, I learned it for 9 weeks. And then after 9 weeks, they send you to Korea. And so I only have 9 weeks of the language in my mind. And so you just have to start preaching, like I'm not teaching in English. I'm only teaching in Korean to Koreans, So you just have to learn. I was located in Korea. There's 4 missions in Korea. I was in Seoul, like the capital city. And so, I would just go around, trying to teach people about my beliefs and also do service. That's one of the big things too, is going around. We would go to homeless shelters and help make food for poor people. We would go to elderly homes, like grandmas and grandpas who maybe can't move. We'd go help them. We would go maybe some older person needs help cleaning their house, and we would just go clean their house for them, or something like this, because it's just like one of our beliefs to go do that, go and serve people. And so the goal isn't to force people or do anything, but it's just to share our belief because we think it's really important, and then and help other people. That's like our 2 years of experience, and it was amazing. I love the Korean people. I loved Korea. They also have an amazing culture, amazing language, and food is crazy good. And it was very different, for me actually going to Korea. Also, that was actually like I said, I a lot of Koreans would ask me if I was what ethnicity I was, because I have an American name, but
look like a mixed
I
child.
look Asian. Yeah, mixed Asian. And so I would tell them, well, it's confusing. I have a last name is, an American name, but I'm adopted from Kazakhstan, so I'm ethnically Kazakh. And they're like, where's Kazakhstan? and I would tell the Koreans, I'm like, Koreans, I'm like, we're not too far away from you. We're also in Asia, not too far. And so that was an interesting experience also. So
I love the part of every religion when you help other people, poor people, feed them, or going to elderly people's houses, and it's such a beautiful thing. And I'm very glad that you had the spirit on your life, and I'm pretty sure that it opened your heart even more. That's maybe it. I think this religious openness also made a huge impact in your personality, because you're such an open person, and I can feel your pure heart, so it's really great. Can you please tell us about your university? Where did you study? What is your major?
So at first I started at BYU, the Idaho campus, and then I didn't know what I was wanting to do, so I just studied some general classes. And then I transferred to BYU Provo, the main campus. And that's where I decided, I was like, I want to study, first of all, I wanted to study finance or accounting. But then I realized I'm very bad at finance and accounting. So I was like, one thing I really love is I really love like learning about new cultures and learning new languages and how other countries think and how the world works. So I decided to start studying international relations. Specifically, my degree was a political science with a international strategies and diplomacy. Because in my mind, I wanted to be a U.S. diplomat to Kazakhstan. I wanted to do it so bad. Like I was like, I'm perfect. I'm a U.S. citizen already. I love learning. I have the degree, and I'm from Kazakhstan, so it'd be so cool if I could help work in like a U.S. embassy or something, or even live in Kazakhstan and maybe help Kazakhs come to America. That'd be amazing if I could do that. And then I found out I graduated from that in December this year. Last year, I guess, December. And then I realized it's kind of hard to get into diplomacy. You need to do a couple other steps before, not just having a degree, you need some experience. So then I was like, oh, maybe I'll get my master's degree. So that's why I'm doing my master's right now. But that was my degree.
So your goal is to become a diplomat. Wow.
Yeah, that's such a great direction, because it's so cool that you clearly see it, your skills, and that, as we already told, that you are like already co-founding some associations, trying to keep in touch with everyone, being
connector, right?
Yeah, being a connector, and I think that's your like strongest skills that you are naturally having it. So that's so great. And you also mentioned at some places that
social
you wanna,
media.
and social media, that you wanna be a businessman, to build your own business. Like, do you also like looking at that direction and doing some steps already, or? But as you said, you're also like in the direction of being a diplomat and getting the master's degree of that. So do you think to mix it up all together?
Yeah, so actually it's interesting. My master's degree is actually in sports business. And I was thinking one way I can get into diplomacy actually is through sports. I love sports, football, basketball, American football, like all these sports. And one thing I was thinking is kind of combining a bunch of different ideas. Like usually to be a diplomat, you need a lot of experience in something. So one reason I was getting my master's in sports is I want to do like a diplomacy through sports at first, just to get some experience. I want to work for like an international organization like FIFA or something, one of the soccer organizations. I've even reached out to the Kazakhstan national football team and said, hey, let me work for you.
That's so cool.
What did they say?
Well, I just said, hey, I'm working on my master's degree at NYU, at New York University. I want to help Kazakhstan's national team, get better every day. Like I watch Kazakhstan's national team, and I think slowly they're getting better. But I would hope one time, eventually, I think it's too late for this World Cup, but the next World Cup, hopefully Kazakhstan can qualify and get in. So that I would love to help them, like it was something like help them with their management or something. Like it'd be one of my big dreams, because if I can start that way, then maybe I can make some money, start my own business, and then later in my years I can become a diplomat. Because I would have some experience, that's kind of my thinking.
That's great plan. You mean soccer, right? When you mentioned football, I thought you were talking about American football, but you mean soccer, right? Like Nash football, our Kazakh football. I mean European football.
Yes, European football.
I think the greatest thing that you are studying in America and getting there all the knowledge of how to build a business American way, because in Kazakhstan I think that's our gap of making little show and fun of the sports activity for the people, and it's at a different level in America. So that's so cool that you're seeing it the direction, you're just pivoting it.
Yesterday I watched the match. Kazakhstan played Belgium and played very well. I think they tied, I think, but they might have won in shootout. I can't remember, but they played very well. They have a one thing that's interesting also being a Kazakh growing up is trying to find, a hero to look to. In America, there was not too many, international superstars that we knew about, but there's been a couple that even a lot of Americans know. Like I know, like fighters like Triple G, GGG. He's even in America is famous. Recently like singers like Dimash, that he's been like getting famous even in America, or like Shavkat Rakhmonov. I watch his fights all the time. Like, his he has a chance to become a champion soon, in the UFC. And I think it's really important for Kazakhs to support each other. Even though like I grew up here, I still, every time I see a Kazakh in the Olympics, I would watch the Olympics every time. I'd always cheer for obviously Team USA, but I also cheer for Team Kazakhstan. Every single like athlete, I would cheer for them and hope, wish they, the best, as I always be cheering them on, even though, I grew up here. It's just like I had some sort of like feeling towards them.
Cool. I just googled the recent news. Sorry for confusing all the names. I think it was just the gaming of the Kazakhs and Real Madrid, because it was the first time when one of the top teams from the soccer world came to visit Kazakhstan and played with the Kazakh soccer team. That was a huge news in Kazakhstan. Everybody, the tickets were sold out. Everybody wanted to see how it's gonna happen, and it was so great feelings that our like soccer team is growing up too. So there's great perspectives over there. So I think the future Sardar is already over there and like doing such a great job to make it even better. So that's what we wanted to say.
Yeah, I agree. I watched that game, and it's been awesome. I love watching, the chance for like a team from Kazakhstan to play in the Champions League, which is the greatest, teams in the world playing against each other. To be invited to that is such a huge honor. So I think, a team like Real Madrid coming, and I think like FC Karat has been playing a bunch of other teams, who are very famous also in the world. And, it's a huge honor. I think all Kazakhs should be very proud of their, of the team.
Yeah, I think it's going to be at least great to observe how the competition goes over there. Can we, Sardar, slowly move to your the story about your birth parents, biological parents? I know that you already wrote in your stories that you tried to find them. How's the progress going over there? Like, could you get any information about them, about your biological mother and parents? Is it possible to even reach out, and connect with them?
Yeah. So how I even found out their names. So my American parents, they had, a bunch of records from the adoption process, right? Like 20 documents. A lot of them were in Russian or Kazakh. So I had sent them to other Kazakhs who can, interpret these documents for me. And I found the names of, both at least according to the documents, my mom and father. Elmira is the name of my mom, and Beknur is the name of my father. It says in the document that my mom was 25 at the time she gave birth to me. And so I think when I've been trying to look for them, well, first I just looked up the names, on like social media, like Facebook, Instagram. I found some names of a woman who matched my mother. I can't, it's like, and I tried reaching out to them. There was no answer though. So that was kind of, because I can understand why, because maybe for them, it's just some random person, messaging them. They don't know who it is, or maybe they don't see it. And then with my father, I haven't really found any information about him until recently, actually. Like 3 weeks ago, this actually happened. Well, I'll get to that in a second, actually. So first of all, when I went to Kazakhstan in 2023, that's one thing I wanted to do is like go into the orphanage and also the city hall in Taraz and be like, hey, can I see my documents of my birth and maybe my parents, because maybe I can find them that way. They should still have each Kazakh citizen has an EIN, like the EIN number, the identification number. So I should be able to like find it somehow, right? And so I went to the city hall. I had some, this one person, she was helping translate for me. And I went there. I showed them the document pictures that I have. I'm like, so I know I was born here. I know this is we even went to the hospital I was born in. Like, I know I was born here. I know this is the orphanage I was in. So the city hall must have some sort of records. And in Jambol region where Taraz is, it's not like a big area. Like, there's not so many people. So I should be able to find, especially when I have names, I should be able to find them. But one issue I had was when I got to the city hall, they didn't actually let me see my own documents. Like, I understand not maybe my parents, but my own documents, they wouldn't let me have it. They said I needed to get a lawyer to go get a notary to see my own documents. I was like, okay. And so later I actually ended up doing that. I got a lawyer here in America and in Kazakhstan, 2 lawyers, and I got stamps of approval. And also I needed permission from my American family to say I'm looking for my biological parents, and they give me permission. So I got my mom's writing, like my American mom's writing, and stamped by the lawyer, like, hey, I'm looking for my biological parents. And so I ended up doing that and send it to the journalist who was helping me, and said, hey, maybe that letter got, I don't know if on the mail it got lost here from America to Kazakhstan, but I had a picture of it at least. So then this last year when I went, I also tried again to go to Taraz, and one family who was helping me also, translate, they had the same issue. Like the city hall would not, even though I had, lawyer notes and documents, they wouldn't give me my own information. So I was kind of mad at that. I was like, I understand not giving, maybe something happened. I don't know, something shady, something that I was giving up or something. I don't know, because like I said, I understand maybe not giving my parents information, but my own information, I don't know why there's hiding. I don't know what issue is coming up. So anyway, that's how it's going. But then back to the thing I was saying before, 3 weeks ago, when it comes to finding the name of my father, there was one Kazakh guy who reached out to me on Instagram, and his last name was Bаймаханов, which is my birth name, like Bаймаханов. And he said, hey, Sardar, I saw that your last name is Bаймаханов. I'm from Taraz. He's like, you were born there too? I'm like, yes. And he's like, I have an uncle, my father's brother, whose name was Beknur, and he died in a car accident. So I was like, man, maybe you're my cousin. I don't know. It could be. He hasn't reached out to me yet again, but I don't know. Maybe I found a cousin at least. I don't know. This happened 3 weeks ago. So.
Did he mention when Beknur Bаймаханов died in a car crash?
He didn't say, but he just said a couple years ago.
Do you know the name of this person? Can you share with us who reached out to you?
I just have their handle.
Bazık Баймахан. Bazık?
So I don't know. So I had a conversation with him.
So why I asked, maybe I thought if someone lives in Taraz right now and knows this person, but I couldn't figure out Bazık. Maybe you will send me his Instagram handle by message, and I'll look it up, and I will just put a subtitle with his name. If someone knows this person, please reach out to him and tell him that Sardar is looking for his response, right?
Yeah. I'm curious if anyone, the coincidences are too, him being from Taraz with the same last name as me, with an uncle named Beknur, coincidences, The signs are showing.
But going back to the records that Taraz City Hall is not releasing to you, so your birth certificate, do you have your birth certificate like signed by authorities with you?
Well, I have pictures of like all the documents, and then I actually have physical copies, but they're back in my home in Utah.
So you have a birth certificate. What kind of document are you trying to reach in Taraz City Hall? Like some records of your birth or what?
Yeah. I wanted to see if they had any records of me in the orphanage and like any other connections and any names, any stories they had. Like, sometimes I know with adoptions, they'll tell like the parent, like why the parent had left them, but so that's what I was looking for. But I don't know, maybe they don't have it, but like maybe they don't have one, but who knows, that's why I was looking.
I don't want to accuse anyone, right? But there was a story recently I've heard about an adoptee from Uralsk in Kazakhstan. She also grew up in America, and she reunited with her family. And turned out her birth mom was told that she died in a hospital. I'm not accusing anyone, but in the late 1990s and in the early 2000s, in Kazakhstan, I believe there were cases of human trafficking.
I mean, it's possible. Like, I don't want to accuse them, but like, and who knows until I get more information, I don't know. So it's possible. I actually, it's interesting. I had one more, the one friend talking about like government shadiness a little bit. My friend who had been adopted, and I went with him in 2023 back to Kazakhstan. He had a similar story where I think his mom had passed away. His father was kind of out of the picture, but he had 4 older siblings, and then the grandma was taking care of, I think, four kids, and because the fifth child was him, the government told the grandma, you cannot, take care of him. You have to wait until one of the oldest siblings turns 18, so then you can go get him, and because you're taking care of too many kids. So they had to put him in the adoption into the orphanage. And then the oldest brother, he was like 17. And so he was like, oh, in a couple months, I'll be able to go get my brother. But then by the time he turned 18 and went back to the orphanage to go get his brother, he had been adopted. So like, there's some like something a little fishy, how it works out, I mean, like for them, they didn't even want to give up their little brother, but it was just the government, made them. So I don't know, maybe something similar. I don't know. Until I get more information, I don't want to say anything, but.
So just for the records, we want to say again that Sardar's dad's name Beknur Bаймаханов, mom's name is Elmira Bаймаханова, and she was born in 1974?
I think so. I just remember one of the records. I can even send them to you after this, all of my documents that I have. But I'm pretty sure one of them had said that she had given birth to me at 25, which means, 25 years ago from 1999 would be 1974. So one thing we also did in 2020, last time when I was in Kazakhstan, we went to the orphanage, and we also went to all of the high schools and in surrounding Taraz area, because one person was thinking, like, there's only a certain amount of schools, and if your mom was born in 1974, she must have been in this certain class in one of the schools sometime in the 80s or something, and they might have the records, but we weren't able to find her that way. And the one school that we thought that she had gone to, it was near Taraz. It was in a smaller town. We went there because we were pretty sure she must have gone there, but they didn't have any record of her either. So I don't know.
for the first time you've been in 2023, you said, right? Was it just a regular visit, or do you just like had some internship or some like?
How long have you been in your first time, right, in Kazakhstan?
Yeah. And also you were saying that in your Instagram you said that you started to learn some Kazakh and Russian languages. How's your progress over there? And overall, we're just interested in your goals about the relations with Kazakhstan.
2023, the first time I went to Kazakhstan, I was there for 3.5 weeks. It was just like seeing, different sites, seeing Kazakhstan, spending time with, like I said, my friend's family that he would be. So we had visited a couple cities, Astana, Pavlodar. His family was from Pavlodar, so we spent a lot of time there in Astana. And then later we went to Almaty in Taraz. In 3.5 weeks I was there. In 2025, this year, January until March, I was in Almaty working. It was actually, I got this internship through my school at BYU, my university, through the Russian program. So the Russian professor, he would send students. He used to send students to St. Petersburg, but because of the war, Americans, students can't go there right now. So he had to pick another country, Russian-speaking country, to send his, Russian-speaking students. And so he picked 2 countries, actually. There's one internship or study abroad in Riga, Latvia, and then the second one in Almaty, Kazakhstan. And so it was actually the second time he had sent students to Kazakhstan. And so when I first went there, I actually I had technically already graduated, but I asked him, I was like, hey, I saw this opportunity. This is only the second time you've ever sent students to Kazakhstan. I'm adopted from Kazakhstan. Is it possible for me to go on this internship? It'd be huge because I would spend 3 months' time in Kazakhstan, my native land. And he was like, of course you can come. So I just had to extend my graduation, for 3 months to get into this internship. And part of it was I was working. So you put in information, and they have a coordination between one of the universities in Kazakhstan and my university. It was a smaller university, Eurasian Technological University in Almaty. But specifically, we went there to learn Russian. So we would go to the classes there 3 days a week and do Russian. And then 2 days a week, we would go to our internship, which I was working at a travel agency company called Compass. And so that's how it would work. And then we would do once a week Kazakh lessons, but it was kind of harder to do because there's the professor there. It was like the timing just wasn't working very well. But I had learned, when it comes to Russian and Kazakh, I had learned Russian a little bit before. When I was little, maybe 9 years old, 10 years old, maybe 8, 9, 10. My mom had taken me and my 2 sisters to a Russian lady who lived in Utah, and we would do Russian, practice Russian with her, to try to learn as much. I really wish I would have, I was a little kid back then, but I wish I would have taken it more seriously, because then maybe I could speak Russian fluently. But then later on, I had taken some, I think 1 or 2 Russian classes in university. So I had known a little bit of the language, but not very much. But I really didn't want to learn Russian. I wanted to learn Kazakh because, Russian's not really Kazakh's language. It's actually Kazakh, so I wanted to learn that. So I lived in 2022, after I went to Nowruz in 2021 party, I met some Kazakhs who were my age, around my age, and I became friends with them. So then in 2022, I was working in Georgia, Atlanta, and I quit my job there during the summer. It was between my university, and I was like, I don't know what to do, but I still want to stay out here and work for the summer before I start school again. I went to Pittsburgh and I lived with a bunch of Kazakhs. All these guys I had met in New York, and so 5 of us were living in Pittsburgh, and I lived with these 5 Kazakh guys, and every single day, I would listen. Most of them actually didn't even speak English very well, so I was just like forcing myself to like at least like learn Kazakh. I'm still very bad. I've been trying, but I think because life is so crazy, I haven't been able to like focus on like getting the language down. So, my goal is to be fluent in Kazakh and at least conversational in Russian. That would be my dream.
You also mentioned that if you have a kid, and when you have a kid in the future, that you would prefer, or you would want your kids to spend some time in Kazakhstan, maybe at some point of their life, maybe just taking a visit or be familiar with their roots over there. And do you still want the same? Do you have the same idea and plans?
Yeah, I've talked to my fiance, my wife, about this, that, my kids are still going to be 50%, Kazakh, right? So like, I would love them so much to get the language down, either Russian or Kazakh. I'm trying to figure out which one, because I got to learn it first, and then I can teach them, but I would love an opportunity for us to live in Kazakhstan, at least for a little bit of time, so they can, get to know at least that side of, the half. Because even myself, I need to learn more, about the culture. I didn't grow up there, but I would love, to share that with my children, if possible. It'd be amazing.
I want to ask our viewers, can you please leave comments here which language Sardar should learn first? And he will read and take an advice, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
So you spent enough time in Kazakhstan to learn about Kazakh people. You know the differences between Americans and Kazakhs. What do you think of Kazakh people's personality? And do you find this personality in you too?
Well, one thing I know about Kazakhs, a couple things, like comparing them to Americans. Americans are very, very friendly at the first, and will be kind of fake to you sometimes, like a friendly fakeness, like not necessarily it's a bad thing, but I've noticed that when I've been around Kazakhs is that they just kind of tell you like straightforwardness, like very straightforward people, like they don't hide their feelings, they just tell you to your face, like no hiding, no nothing. Like if I don't like you, I'm going to tell you I don't like you to your face, like nothing you can do about it. But then one also really cool thing I like about Kazakhs, I think it's just ingrained in Kazakh culture in general, is like being friendly to like your guests. I know it's like very important, like maybe you don't have to like a stranger or different people, but like when that person is, invited into your home, Kazakh people like, treat them so well. Like I've been in so many situations when I was in Kazakhstan where, when I was in Taraz last year, like I knew a friend who knew a friend, and he just let me stay at his family's house, and that family just like took me in like their son, like, and took care of me and helped me. It was like amazing, like I didn't even know them yet. I just knew their son and he, from the time I met him in America, but his whole family just like, took care of me, which was amazing. So I would say that I love that about Kazakhs. But I would say one thing I wish Kazakhs would do a little bit more is just, you gotta smile a little bit more, just a little bit more.
Yes.
Be a little more happy. I mean, that's one thing I think. I understand, like, life in Kazakhstan and life in America is very different. And, sometimes there's hardships, a little bit more hardship in Kazakhstan. So, life is a lot more difficult, I would say, there. So I understand, but I promise if you guys like, smile more and try to be more happy and not so looking like you want to fight somebody every 5 seconds. like the Kazakh faces in the streets, like no emotion. like geez, why is everyone just pissed all the time? You know. It's funny. It's funny as an American. You know, it was interesting. My American parents told me this story. When they went and adopted us, they asked the translator, they're like, how can they tell we're American? Like technically we could be Russian, you know, we're white, you know, Russians are white people too. Like, how could they tell we're you know, that we're American? And they're like, you guys smile too much.
You know, we talked about this with Aray a lot. So we are Kazakhs. We grew up in Kazakhstan, but we spent a few years here. And we talked about this too much in our podcast too. So one of the reasons why we Kazakh people don't smile very much at the streets, I believe personally that it's due to our history. So if you compare American people's history in 20th century in our history in 20th century, we had like a famine, wars, people dying, nuclear testing, removing of our culture, language, colonization, and it's just too much to bear. And but I hope maybe in 10, 20, 30 years we also will become the smiley people you want us to become, right?
Yeah. I think I believe that it's going to change.
It won't change, but I would love it.
No, your smile is great, and your smile warms our heart. And the one thing I appreciate and value the most in our people, it's this warmness. Kazakh people, they might feel like look pissed at the streets, but if you need help, they will not ask your name, they will help. And we have this warmness, and I feel this warmness in you. Kazakh people, like family is very important for us, right? We have this spider web of connections in our society, and you feeling to connect with other adoptees from Kazakhstan, organizing them, being very open, answering our requests. Like I wrote to you and you said, of course, let's do this. And you are very open and warm, and I see it in you. So I'm very grateful for the time we spent together today. I wish we saw you in person. Magic would be the different, right? But if you're ever here in California, in Northern California, please come and we will talk in person, and I am sure we will have the more deeper conversation. But for now, thank you for these online tools.
Yeah. Thank you for joining for today's podcast and meeting, Sardar. Yeah, sorry, I got lost the connection in my laptop. So thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing all your personal thoughts, life experience, and journey that is happening with you. We're glad to hear. We're glad to support, and just being the good observer from side about your life. And I think there's going to be a lot of highs, a lot of achievements in your life, that's for sure. I'm confident about that. So we just cheer for you and wishing all the best. And again, we're so grateful that you joined us today. And thanks a lot.
Рахмет.
Саған рахмет. Қымбатты достар, Сардарға деген тілектеріңіз болса, біздің видеоның астына қалдырыңыздар. Егер Тараздан болып жатсаңыздар, Таразда туыстарыңыз болып жатса, оларға осы видеоны жіберіп бөлісіңіздер. Өйткені мүмкін біреу болмаса біреу Баймаханов, Бекнұр мен Баймаханова Эльмира туралы естіген шығар, білетін шығар. Сондықтан міндетті түрде бөлісіңіздер. Өйткені Сардардың осылай барлық журналистермен қарым-қатынас жасап, барлығына өзінің тарихын, өзінің оқиғасын, хикаясын айтып жүргеннің ең басты мақсаты ол өзінің ата-анасын табу.
Сондықтан көмек болып жатса, тырысып көрейік. Мүмкін көптің жұмысымен, көптің көмегімен табылып қалар.
Мен сенем, Сардардың туыстары табылыңыздар, табылып жатсаңыздар, бізге комментарий қалдырыңыздар, біз сізді Сардармен байланыстырамыз. Sardar, we loved the conversation. Please, we wish you all the best to your young family. say hi to your beautiful bride, and I hope we'll see you in person soon.
Thank you, Sardar.
So, рахмет.
Рахмет.
Sağ болыңыз.